Hey guys, Alex from LMU Academy here with another Le Mans Ultimate Fix Setup Lap Guide, this time in the Toyota GR10 Hybrid at Interlagos. As always, we'll cover the setup first, then cover each corner in slow time, followed by the pit entry, and then finally put the lap together for you in real time. So first, let's take a look at the setup, and remember that we're using the default setup for the car with some slight changes to the electronics and brakes, which means you can still use this setup and achieve this lap time in any race that forces the fixed setup to be used. Now we set a lap time of 1:23.9 using quali fuel with the medium tyre compound. Taking a look at the traction settings, we're using an overall TC value of 9, TC cut 6, and TC slip 9. Onto the brakes, and we're using a brake bias of 51.4 on the front and 48.6 on the rear. We're using a brake migration of 2.5 to the front, as well as a max pedal force of 100%. Then finally onto the anti-roll bars, and we've got the front set to P1 and the rear set to P3. Now that's covered, let's take a look at each corner in slow time. So for turn 1, we place our car so that the white line is in line with the middle of the car, and our first braking point is just at the 50-meter board on the right. Now we need to go for a later apex to set up the next series of turns. So we go hard on the brakes down to first gear and start turning in for the corner just as the bright green section of tarmac changes to dark green. Now as we reach the apex, we can place our left side tyres onto the green and yellow curb, but avoid taking too much of that curb because it can cause the car to scrape along the curb, which will ruin our exit speed. Once we reach the apex, we can go smoothly on the throttle about 50% and upshift to second gear, and we keep the car pointed straight ahead at the green Rolex board. We turn in for the next apex once we reach the end of the green and yellow curb on the left, and as we turn in, we lift off the throttle slightly to help the car rotate. We then go back on the throttle fully as we reach the next apex and make sure that we avoid touching the yellow sausage curb on the right. Once we pass the apex, we straighten the wheel as soon as possible and we place our left side tyres onto the green and yellow curb, but avoid going further than that or there's a chance that you can invalidate the lap. Now we follow the shape of the curb and then begin drifting outwards slowly as the solid green tarmac ends. Then as we exit, we can place our right side tyres onto the exit curb, but make sure to keep the left side tyres on the road within the white line. Now our next braking point is this orange section of the barrier on the right. We go hard on the brakes down to second gear, and as we reach the apex, we can place our left side tyres onto the curb, but avoid the yellow sausage curb. Then as we exit, we can place our right side tyres onto the green and yellow curb, but avoid the green curb with white triangles as it can invalidate the lap. Now as we exit, we immediately turn in towards the green and yellow curb on the left, but avoid touching it. Then as we exit, we straighten out the wheel and then move over to the left side of the track as soon as we can. We then place our car over the dark green section of tarmac so that the white line is in line with the middle of our car, and our next braking point is this blue Goodyear sign on our right. We go on the brakes about 80% but trail off early to keep our speed up. Then as we reach the end of the solid green tarmac, we allow the car to drift outwards slightly and then apply the throttle as we reach this solid green section of tarmac to our right. We keep the wheel turned to the right, and it's important to listen to the car here. If at any point you feel like it's starting to understeer, then lift off the throttle slightly to help it rotate. Then as we exit, we can place our left side tyres about halfway over the curb, making sure we keep our right side tyres on the track within the white line. Now our next braking point is just before we reach this yellow DHL sign on the right. We go on the brakes about 60% down to first gear, and we can place our right side tyres onto the curb but avoid the yellow sausage curb. As we exit, we go back on the throttle smoothly and keep the wheel turned to the right to help open up the next corner. Then as we feel the car straighten up, we lift off the throttle and flick the wheel to the left. Now when we can apply the throttle here depends on how much speed we carried into the corner, but a good throttle point is as we reach this green marshal's booth on our right. We go back on the throttle smoothly and straighten up the wheel as we exit, and we can place our right side tyres onto the green and yellow curb, making sure we keep our left side tyres on the road within the white line. Now as we reach the total energies board on our right, we aim the car towards the white barriers on our left, and our braking point is just as the green and yellow curb on the right begins. Now it's very easy to lock up here, so we need to try and keep the wheel as straight as possible, but also be very gentle with the brakes, about 50%, and trail off early down to first gear. Then as we reach the apex, we can place our right side tyres onto the green and yellow curb, but avoid the yellow sausage curb as it can unsettle the car. Now our throttle point is just as this black section of barrier reaches the left side of our cockpit, or the black pole on the right comes into our view. We go on the throttle smoothly and aim the car towards the curb directly in front of us. Then as we reach it, we straighten up the wheel and then turn the car over to the right to open up the next corner. Now as we reach the end of this green and yellow curb on our right, we turn in hard for the next corner, and we can place our left side tyres just on the edge of the green and yellow curb. Avoid taking more than this though, as it can cause the car to understeer as we exit the corner. Then as we exit, we can use all of the green and yellow curb, but avoid touching the solid green curb as it can compromise our entry into the next braking zone. Now there's no real braking marker for the final corner, but I've found the green patch of grass that's in between the two brown patches on the left to be consistent. We go hard on the brakes down to second gear, and as we reach the apex, the car's behaviour will differ depending on which part of the track we use. If we stay on the road and avoid the green and yellow curb like we did here, we get a slower corner entry but gain a faster corner exit because we won't activate much traction as we apply the throttle. Our other option is we can carry more speed and enter the corner earlier by placing our left side tyres onto the curb. This will give us a faster corner entry but a slower corner exit as the car becomes slightly unsettled and activates a lot more traction as we apply the throttle, with a chance to lose the rear of the car if we don't apply the throttle carefully. Either way is fine though, just try them both to see which you're more comfortable with. Then as we exit, we straighten up the wheel and we can place our right side tyres over the entire curb. Just make sure you keep your left side tyres on the white line. Then finally, as we straighten the wheel, we immediately turn in for the next corner and keep the car as far as possible to the left side of the track, and that completes the lap. Now let's take a look at the pit entry, and as we approach the entry lane we stay full throttle and then aim to have the steering wheel straight as we reach our braking point, which is the end of this metal railing on the left. We go hard on the brakes initially but then trail brake off to 50% brake pressure to keep our speed up and prevent us from locking up as we turn the wheel to stay within the white lines. Try to make sure you get the car slowed down to first gear before you reach the end of the railing on the right, as any later than that can result in a lockup which can cause you to slide and then speed as you cross the pit line. Now we'll also cover the pit exit as it's very difficult to do with cold tyres. We start by placing our car all the way to the right to open up the first corner, and we lift off the throttle and then turn in hard to the left as we cross the pit line, making sure we deactivate the pit limiter. We go back on the throttle about 50% as we reach the final Rolex logo and straighten out the wheel as soon as possible. Then we go on the throttle fully and move the car over to the railing on the left. Now our braking point is just as we reach the end of the metal railing on the right, and we go lightly on the brakes about 50% and trail off early to avoid locking up. We bring the car as close as possible to the green barrier on the right, and our throttle point is just as we clear the bend in the railing. We go on the throttle smoothly and keep the wheel turned to the right and aim for the electronic flagpole straight ahead of us. As we reach the flagpole, we then lift off the throttle, keeping it at about 30 to 40%, and then turn in towards the railing on the left. We then stick next to the railing as close as possible and keep the throttle at about 40%, and as the railing ends, we apply full throttle and straighten the wheel. So that was a lap at Interlagos in the Toyota GR10 Hybrid, and now we'll put it all together for you and leave you with the entire lap in real time. Now if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and if you want to see more lap guides like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel or visit lmuacademy.com.